They say age is just a number, but for many Western men between 45 and 80, that number started to feel more like a wall. Back home, dating becomes complicated. You're too old for apps, too experienced for games, and too invisible in a world obsessed with youth. But what if crossing an ocean could change all of that? In Cambodia, a quiet but powerful shift is happening. Western men, often retired, divorced, or simply tired of being overlooked, are finding something they didn't expect: respect. It's not about money. It's not about flashy lifestyles. It's about something much deeper: being valued for who you are, not how many birthdays you've had. Here, relationships aren't built on trends, they're built on character. Cambodian women, raised in a culture rooted in humility and family, often see emotional maturity and balance as strengths, not burdens. When that mindset meets a man who's lived, loved, and maybe even lost, it can create something genuine, even beautiful. So why Cambodia? What's drawing these men to this small Southeast Asian country, not just for a visit, but to settle, to connect, and in many cases, to start over? This isn't some fantasy or idealized dream. It's real life in 2025, and today, we're diving into it. We'll explore the culture, the values, the way people treat each other. We'll hear what makes Cambodian women see Western men differently and why the respect they give feels so surprising to those who receive it. But to understand that, we need to start with the roots, because in Cambodia, everything begins with one quiet, powerful principle: respect, quietly woven into every layer of daily life. Let's look at how it shaped daily life and why it might be the reason so many Western men feel more alive here than anywhere else. To understand why so many Western men feel respected in Cambodia, we have to understand what respect actually looks like here. Because in this country, it's not about words. It's about gestures, tone, patience, and the way people move through the world. Cambodian society is built on a quiet strength. It's a place where elders are honored not for what they have, but for what they've experienced. Where listening is more powerful than speaking, and where humility isn't a weakness, it's expected. That sense of dignity, of holding space for others, touches every part of life, from how people eat meals together to how they walk through the market. Centuries of Buddhist influence have shaped this mindset. The Khmer people believe in karma, in balance, and in self-control. Children are taught to lower their eyes when speaking to their parents. Conflict is avoided not because people are afraid, but because peace is valued. Even in moments of disagreement, voices rarely rise. Everything happens with a certain softness, and that's what makes it so different for many men coming from the West. In the West, especially in recent decades, relationships often feel transactional, fast-paced, emotionally distant, and increasingly tied to image and independence. That's not wrong, it's just different. But when a man who's spent his life in that kind of world lands in Cambodia, he enters a completely different emotional climate. And the contrast can be stunning. It starts with small things: a woman gently bringing you water before asking you about your day, a neighbor nodding with genuine acknowledgement instead of rushing past, a family inviting you in not because you're a foreigner, but because you're a guest. These aren't performances. They're part of a culture that believes kindness should come first and be shown often. And that kindness isn't naive. Cambodia has a difficult history. Decades of war, trauma, and rebuilding have left deep scars. But perhaps because of that, the people have developed an extraordinary ability to stay grounded. They value stability, family, and the small moments. It's a place where your past doesn't define you as much as your presence does, and where being present truly matters. That's one reason Western men often say the same thing after living here for a while: I feel seen again. In a society where youth and speed often rule, being seen, not just noticed, but respected is powerful. And when that feeling comes from someone who truly values emotional steadiness, kindness, and shared silence, it can be life-changing. But this deep respect isn't offered blindly. It's earned through sincerity. Cambodian women don't admire just any foreign man. They admire those who bring gentleness, patience, and a willingness to understand, not dominate. And that, more than anything, is what lays the foundation for real connection. So what happens when those values meet a Western man who's ready to listen? That's where something begins. Something quiet but strong. And it's in those early moments of connection that the real story starts to unfold. When a Western man arrives in Cambodia, he often doesn't realize how differently he's perceived. It's not about his passport. It's about the way he carries himself slowly, thoughtfully, with a kind of emotional calm that stands out here. For many Cambodian women, that calmness doesn't signal weakness, it signals security. There's a belief in Cambodia that relationships are built over time, not rushed. That trust must be felt, not forced. And so when a Western man brings patience into a conversation, when he listens more than he speaks, when he doesn't interrupt, that speaks volumes in a culture that values emotional steadiness. These men are often older, not always, but often, and that age comes with a life lived. And while in many places that might be seen as a drawback, here it becomes a quiet strength. Cambodian women often admire the confidence of a man who doesn't need to prove himself, who's lived through difficulty and come out softer, not harder, who knows how to offer, not just ask. There's also the matter of affection. In many parts of Cambodian culture, public displays of affection are rare. Love is often quiet, gentle, and understated. But when a Western man brings openness, saying thank you, showing emotion, even holding hands, it can feel new, refreshing. That kind of vulnerability, when expressed respectfully, can create a sense of intimacy that's both emotional and respectful. At the same time, Western men often bring with them a different kind of gender dynamic. They tend to see their partners more as equals, wanting conversation, mutual decision-making, and shared plans. For many Cambodian women, especially those who've grown up with traditional expectations, this kind of partnership feels new, but in a good way. It creates a space for growth, trust, and closeness that doesn't rely on power, but presence. Some women describe it in simple terms: he listens to me, or he doesn't shout. These aren't grand romantic gestures. They're small daily actions that slowly build into something solid. Over time, these become the foundation for a relationship built not on fantasy, but on peace. This isn't to say Cambodian men aren't respectful. Many are, but the difference is in energy, pace, and emotional fluency. Western men often talk about their feelings more openly. They apologize. They show gratitude. And when that level of emotional maturity meets someone who's been raised to offer care and warmth, it can create a rhythm that feels incredibly natural and deeply calming. Still, it's not without challenges. Sometimes, language gets in the way, or expectations clash, especially around money, roles, or independence. But what often carries the relationship through is the mutual willingness to understand. Both sides bring something to the table. One brings quiet strength, the other brings curiosity and care. And from that, something real can grow. Western men aren't seen as kings here because of what they own. They're appreciated because of how they behave. Respect goes both ways, and when given freely, it becomes something you live inside, not something you chase. It's not just felt, it's reflected back, day by day. And for many men, that's the real shift. After years of feeling like they had to chase love or prove their worth, they suddenly find themselves in a place where they're enough just as they are. That realization opens the door to something deeper. But as the connection grows, so do the challenges, and not all stories end with ease. In fact, what happens next is where the real tests begin, because love, no matter where you are, still demands something real. When the first glow of connection starts to settle, something else begins to surface reality. And while many relationships between Western men and Cambodian women are filled with mutual care, they're also filled with moments that test patience, understanding, and trust. One of the first challenges is often communication. While many Cambodian women speak some English and some Western men learn bits of Khmer, there's still a gap, not just in words, but in expression. A man might say exactly what he means, while a woman, raised to avoid confrontation, might hint instead of stating. That difference can create silences that aren't peaceful, they're confusing. Then there's the issue of money. For many Cambodian women, supporting their family isn't just a choice, it's a duty. So when she asks for help with her mother's medicine or her brother's school fees, it's not a scam, it's part of life. But for a man who's retired, on a fixed income, or simply unaware of this cultural expectation, it can feel like pressure. Suddenly, generosity starts to look like obligation. And if those expectations aren't discussed early, resentment can grow quietly. Age difference is another reality. Many of these couples have 20 or even 30 years between them. And while that may not be a problem in the beginning, over time, it can raise questions about energy, health, and future plans. There are also social pressures. In some villages, people still talk. A young Cambodian woman with an older foreign partner might face quiet judgment from neighbors or even her own family. And for the man, that can feel like a reminder that no matter how respectful he is, he'll always be seen as an outsider. Sometimes, misunderstandings come from small things: a forgotten birthday, a misinterpreted silence, a gift that didn't carry the right meaning. Western men often want clarity and logic. Cambodian women often value emotional harmony, and when emotions are hurt, it's not always clear how to repair the damage. But here's the truth: every relationship has tension. What makes these connections different is the willingness to stay present through discomfort. The couples who thrive aren't the ones who avoid conflict. They're the ones who sit with it, ask questions, and learn not just about each other, but about themselves. Some men realize they have to slow down, not just in how they speak, but in how they listen. That a nod doesn't always mean agreement. That it's okay doesn't always mean everything's fine. And some women realize that honesty isn't disrespect, that expressing her needs won't make him run away. And in those moments, something deeper starts to grow. A kind of trust that isn't flashy or loud, but steady. A relationship where both people feel safe enough to be real. That doesn't mean it's always easy, but it means both sides are showing up day after day. Yes, some relationships fail. Some were never built on solid ground to begin with. But many others become something few expected. A partnership where age, language, and background fall away, and what's left is two people, deeply human, finding their own rhythm in a world that often tells them it's too late to start again. And that's the quiet power of these connections. They aren't about escape, they're about return, not to youth, but to meaning. And when that meaning is shared, the relationship becomes more than romance, it becomes home. In a world that often moves too fast, Cambodia offers a different kind of time. Slower, softer, and for many Western men, that slowness doesn't feel like a step back. It feels like finally being allowed to breathe, to be still, to be known. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep the conversation going. Because the stories that matter most are the ones we tell when we stop trying to impress and start trying to connect.